Everybody, I'm Colonel Dave Skalon. I'm the Cyber Operations Officer for the Indiana National Guard. What does that mean? That means I oversee the strategic cyber operations. That means I move the monies for training of our soldiers. I make sure it's divided as evenly and fairly as possible based on priority of unit and mission set. I also am responsible for setting up a training site, which I'll be going through, called Muscatatuck. If you've ever heard of it, it's a fascinating little place. It was built out of a 1930s mental health facility. So if you think state hospital, that's what it was. We fixed that. So we've done that for 14 years. We've moved that from mission to mission to mission to meet the emerging requirements and needs for the forces. So now we're going through another transition, and we're making it from an urban training center into a multi-domain operations center. What's that mean? That means a little bit of everything to everyone. It specializes specifically in the cyber sciences, information operations, a little bit of PsyOps, and some electronic warfare just for fun. So one of the things I'm glad John mentioned, leadership. And this isn't part of my brief, but it is now because he touched on something that's near and dear to my heart. When I was deployed in 2011, I had a little time on my hands, so I was reading some articles in between rocket attacks. And I found this article on leadership. And it talked about how in the next 5 to 6 years, America is going to have a serious void in developing leaders, or a lack of leadership through whatever generational process you want to put to it. And I read that, and I'm like, I don't believe that. I mean, obviously, look at my surroundings, though. I was surrounded by uniformed leaders and civilians that were supporting the cause. Everybody was some form of a leader. So, you know, I was biased based on my surroundings. I came home 2012, started looking around, and you know the old adage, if you want to look for something, or if you want to find something, go look for it. Well, I started to see it, but then it started to permeate more and more. So what John was saying earlier about leadership, take this to heart. How many in here are a student of some form? Okay. Take this to heart. Do not shy away from any opportunity to lead. I don't care if it's just leading a small group for a discussion, a small team going to lunch. Never, ever waste an opportunity to lead, because that void in leadership is out there. It's out there. And if you can lead, even in the most simplistic terms, you will always be employed and you'll always be valued. Okay? So that was my quick and dirty leadership add-on to that wonderful discussion earlier. So, yesterday was the Marine Corps' birthday. They are now 247 years old. I always bring them up because obviously it's the day before Veterans Day, and whenever I have these speaking engagements, I always like to acknowledge the day. Many of you don't know this, or maybe you do, that the Marine Corps was actually formed in a small back room in a Philadelphia bar 247 years ago. They came up with the plan, the concept, they got it put together, toasted their glass, and they ate the first crayon. Sorry, any former Marines or current ones, I had to do that. Okay, war story time. Do we have any double E's in here? Anybody with a serious electrical background? Okay, too bad. I was in Desert Storm. We're setting up. This would have been this is very early, I would say it was around October, long before the ground war kicked off. And I'm in this little primitive, I'll call it a Connex, but it had power and it had air conditioning. Okay, it sort of had power. So I was going to add in another breaker. You know, I'm young, I'm motivated, I can put a breaker in, right? Well, I shut off the main power. I'm like, I'm clean, I'm clear, I'm putting this breaker in. I got into it. I must have touched A to B somewhere. I got zapped with some delicious 220, and it knocked me cold. Laying there, spread eagle in my doorway. I don't know how long I was out, but 3 of my buddies came in, kicked my feet, and said, "What's wrong with you?" And then when I told them what had happened, they continued to make fun of me for a long time. And that's when I came up with the adage, it's better to be lost than found, because being found is embarrassing. And yes, the main was actually a subordinate breaker, and one of the other breakers was somehow wired to be the main. To this day, I still can't sit down with a stubby pencil and figure out exactly what went on there. So my contact information is down below if anybody wants to reach me, or just see me after this and I'll share any and all. Okay, how does the Indiana National Guard work together with others? So we've got the benefit to employers and benefits to the National Guard. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the benefits to academia and the benefits to students, okay? It's not really a recruiting spiel, but we're pretty awesome. So the benefits to academia, tuition and funding. You get money for school. You get money for school. Oh, and by the way, your parents, if you're under 18, your parents can actually sign for you to join the National Guard at the age of 17. So you can actually start your military career at 17 if you choose to make a career out of it. 20 years later, you're 37 years old, and you're a 20-year vet with a retirement in your pocket already. Just, there you go. All right, disciplined and seasoned students. Okay, what does that mean? You sit in that classroom a little better. You pay attention a little more because you've been in dire straits through different training and different experiences that the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, even Coast Guard, and of course Space Force can give you. So disciplined and seasoned students, you get more than your average college student if you have somebody that's already served or is serving. An increased graduation rate. Why? Well, soldiers, airmen, Marines, they finish things. When they start something, they finish it. Even if they have to leave for some kind of a life event, they'll come back and finish it. And then your different perspectives based on those military experiences. And sometimes, I don't want to belabor the point here, but sometimes I use a little clip from Rodney Dangerfield when he went back to school and when he started yelling at his professor back and forth about military experiences. But really, those different perspectives are invaluable when you start having open discussions and candid things about experiences, because an 18-year-old who's been through basic training and their advanced individualized training and a few drills in the National Guard has a whole lot more to offer that class than your average 18-year-old student who just comes out and comes to school. They may know the material, but they've got these other life experiences that they can tie into it. It makes for richer and deeper discussions. And then, of course, the benefits to the students. You get course credit for being in the service. And for those of you, there was a young man back here, I believe, you said Marine Corps Reserve. Thank you for your service. Make sure you get credit for your service, though. There's programs that will apply what you've already experienced and will experience to actual credits. Advanced education and theory. You get a lot of experience in the military. You know, even on a bad day, you learn. Even on a bad day, you learn. Promotion opportunities. You know, you could start out in life advancing up through military ranks a lot faster than you're going to advance up through your civilian ranks. And that's very good for your development. It challenges you, makes you a better employee. And then, of course, cultural and business networking. Why? Because the National Guard is you. We are the populace, okay? We are the populace. That's what we're made up of. Even the full-timers are from the communities you live in. Okay, cyber and the Indiana National Guard. Now, these are some of our force structures. And I'm going to focus on those a little bit better, and then I'm going to go deeper into the actual MOSs we carry. So, the 127th Cyber Battalion, they are returning home as we speak. Successful mobilization. They split their mission between Fort Meade and Fort Gordon, and they served overseas through the wire in the continental United States. Very exciting. The last time we sent a cyber force out east, they didn't have as exciting of a mission. They were kind of, I wouldn't say put in the corner, but they did not have a very exciting mission. But this time, they actually did bring goodness and made the country more secure. Their mission, I cannot say, but as sure as I'm standing here, it was, it made a difference, a huge difference. Now, they're coming back in, some of them are here already, some of them will be coming back. I don't give specific dates. Let's just say they're going to have a Merry Christmas. And what is a cyber battalion? It's made up of two companies. One's defense, and the other one is a warfare company, offense. Now, Do we train specifically on that? Yes and no. But keep in mind, even just like any other military faction, they do not target U.S. citizens. They cannot collect intel on U.S. citizens. That is a federal mission that would go through some other individuals that are in the room. And really, the makeup of a cyber battalion, think of it about 100 people, roughly, okay? And then we have the 181st Intelligence Wing. That's in Terre Haute. So that's the Air Force side of cyber. They also run real-world missions from right there in Terre Haute. Right there in Terre Haute. And they've supported many, many things. And they also have very, very deep classifications. And they have a lot of personnel dedicated to cyber, both on the base operations side, so think about securing your day-to-day networks, and also the operational style teams that actually deploy and reach out overseas. The 38th Infantry Division, okay, so it's a very large formation. And what do they have? They have the base operations type of cyber, that we call them 25 Deltas. They protect the servers, the workstations, and the things that the warfighters need to conduct their business. Okay, but they also have electronic warfare specialists. Well, what do? They live in the spectrum. They understand electronic warfare to the point of defending, blocking, degrading, and occasionally overseas they will have the ability to destroy. 76th Infantry Brigade Combat Team has something very similar to 38th ID, only a smaller team. Brigade smaller than division. 54th Security Force Advisory Brigade. Think of this as a very long, wordy term for Indiana National Guard Special Forces. These are teams that deploy and advise overseas. They have a small set of cyber specialists to protect their advisors when they're out and about running missions. And then the Combat Aviation Brigade, they have a lot of electronic warfare, radar specialists, etc. Again, the frequencies matter to those birds. And then, my favorite, the Defensive Cyber Operations Element. This is a 10-person team, and their job is twofold. Base operations, they protect the day-to-day networks, and they also have a contingency operation where they are the first ones called if the National Guard is ever called to respond to a cyber incident. They'll come out and they'll start the incident handling process. They'll go through the recon, follow the steps of response, come back, advise what troops and force packages we need, and then we would then stand up force packages to meet whatever the cyber threat or instance is. And then at some point, if that mission endures or it grows in scale and scope, we escalate it federal and we back out cleanly. And then, of course, the force packages I just mentioned. We fashion those against the 16 critical infrastructures. So if you see critical infrastructure, we align those packages to support those types. Now, a lot of those packages are very similar. You know, you'll have the network person, you'll have ICS-SCADA, you'll have a database person, you're going to have an intel person, yada, yada, yada. But there's little bit differences and bolt-ons based on. Some with higher sensitivity, I would immediately go and get the JAG involved or the state attorneys, because the rules of engagement are very, very sensitive when you start putting uniformed people onto U.S. systems. And coming soon, the Intelligence and Electronic Warfare Battalion. So a little bit about National Guard. There's 54 states and territories, right? So in 54 states and territories, they're not the same. The formations you see in Indiana are not in Illinois. They're not in Ohio. They're not in Michigan. They're not in Louisiana. They're not in Hawaii. They're all unique. And that's the one concept where the active component struggles when they talk to the National Guard, because they have to understand what the force structures look like in the National Guard. And so there's that a little bit of negotiation whenever we work together. So this Intelligence Electronic Warfare Battalion, we're trying to get this. So we're competing with other states for this force structure. And you're thinking, why do you have to compete? Isn't it just assigned to you? Well, there's this word, and I'm trying to think of it. I think it's called politics. That seems to play a bit on how the forces are formed. So Anyway, we're very close to actually securing this battalion formation for Indiana. And what does that give us? That gives us on the Army side, something that compares to a combination of the Air Force Intel Wing and then a little bit of the 38th Infantry Division's intelligence capabilities, all mashed into one. So it's going to be quite an impressive little unit. Okay, so all those formations, all those crazy words and acronyms and numbers that I just put on the page, here's some more. So this tells you a little bit about the MOS's, military occupational specialties, and the branches. So if you hear MOS, think enlisted. You hear branch, think warrant officer or officer. Okay? So officers, we have a 17 Alpha cyber operations officer. Okay, that's your, if you want to use this term, a generalist in cyber. AJ, you're a 17 Alpha, aren't you? If you ever want to see one, there it is. And I love to embarrass AJ. So AJ is our cyber warfare company commander, and his troops are the ones just now returning to the state. And so AJ's an impressive example, and I'm glad he's here today because, tell him how many IT certifications you have, AJ. Okay, 14 or 15. How long have you been in that battalion?
Over 2 years.
2 years? And how long did you work full-time in the 6?
8 years.
Okay, so 2 years in the battalion, and his certifications went from the normal base operations style that he had for the first 6 years of his career, and they exponentially burst based on the specified training. Now, AJ's not alone. You're not number one on certifications, are you?
There's somebody with like 60 something.
Yeah, we've got a couple pretty scary little cyber warriors out there, and they test well. Let me tell you, they test well and they're operationally sound. So the 17 Bravos, those are your electronic warfare types. If anybody's been in the Army for the past 10 years, these are the former 29s. They just switched it over to cyber and put them in there. Okay, and then the new 17 Deltas. These are brand new. Indiana does not have one of these yet, unless your force structure is changing. I haven't heard that it is, though, AJ. 17 Delta, these are your application specialists or cyber coders, if you will. They go deep into the code and programming. Then FA-30, which is one of the functional areas I have. FA is functional area, not field artillery. 30 Alpha, information operations. This is informing and influencing foreign audiences. Okay, think of it as watching any television commercial here in the U.S. Only we're doing that overseas to curry favor or gain some kind of an operational advantage utilizing the opinions and feelings, et cetera, of the populations we're surrounded by. That also has a little bit of a dovetail into PSYOPs, but that's a more specified science. Then warrant officers. So an officer is a generalist, okay? We just oversee, manage, we kind of understand what we're doing. Warrant officers are deep technical. Deep technical. These folks come from the enlisted ranks, and based on their technical acuity and expertise, then they ascend to warrant officers. And warrant officers are awesome. They're awesome, just ask them. And the same thing, the warrant officers match the officers. So you see the 255 Sierra, information security. The top two are pure cyber, and the 255 Sierra, think of that as expeditionary or mobilizing cyber overseas. That would be more embedded in a normal combat formation, as opposed to the 170 Alphas and Bravos normally go in a unit specialized in cyber. And then, of course, the enlisted ranks also fall in suit. And the 25 Delta is also for the expeditionary or the deploying combat units. Okay, and then down below, I just put some of the signal ones because I'm a signal officer. I love those guys. So that just shows you the depth and breadth of all the communications, capabilities, cyber, and personnel that we have in the Indiana National Guard. Okay? Now this is just an example eye chart. I did this for impact. This shows a 17 Charlie, okay? A 17 Charlie is the enlisted cyber specialist. And this is just their AIT and their basic training. This is the, or not basic training, this is just their advanced individual training. This is what they go through. And that's your common foot soldier if you want to think of it that way. But they're not common. So you want, how many, any of you that are employers or managers, you want anybody like this on your team? Be kind of nice to have, wouldn't it? All right, so just like I gave the example of AJ and then that the other soldiers in his battalion, they're highly certified, we go beyond the common A+, Net+, and Security+. Yeah, we have to get those baseline ones to meet our federal requirements and certifications, et cetera, but we go way deeper. We go through individualized training based on your role. So like in AJ's case, he's had different roles which has allowed him to accrue these specialized skills and certifications. The persistent cyber training environment, this is our, think of this as a virtual playground. This is where we can interconnect into this national system and have cyber scenarios that our teams can work through. I call this the clean room cyber, if you want to think of it that way, because this would be more in your lab style environment or at a coffee shop, a hotel, wherever you want to set up your operations. And then you all interconnect there, your teams are based on roles, and you have a scenario that your team has to work through to get better. Okay, cyber shielding exercises. Again, these are more clean room style exercises. Cyber shield is where all 54 states and territories send a team to go and get immersed in a real world scenario. They'll have a partner, which will either be somebody from the government or somebody from business. And they have to satisfy that partner in a role-playing scenario while they're going through the operation. So if you've made the business mad and they start shutting down what you can do, well then your impact on the exercise is going to be less and less, and it's going to be harder for you. So you have to kind of learn the people aspect as you're going through the scenario as well. Okay, and then I already talked about the training. We train, and train. Our incident response, mitigation, defense, and offense. So when you think offense, that is purely for the cyber battalion. The other aspects do not do that. They have red teams that aggress against them, but they're purely defensive. SANS courses. Those are the creme de la creme of training, if you will. SANS courses are very expensive, though. Fortunately, we are very well funded, and I'm able to spend 6 figures every year on SANS courses to make our cyber warriors better. So, as an employer, you think, okay, so you're telling me if I encourage one of my employees to join the National Guard, I get this training for him? Well, yeah, if he's in a cyber unit, we can put him into a SANS course. You're not paying the $8,000 to $10,000 for the training out of your pocket, your business's pocket, and you get somebody better in return. So there's mutual benefits to National Guardsmen being part of your formation. And then last but not least, one of my duties is to oversee Muscatatuck. Muscatatuck is approximately a 1,000-acre former mental health institution, like I said, and I'm going to cover that here in just a second, but first, it's time for a meme. So, quick cyber quiz, who would win? Artificial intelligence or some box? Love it. All right, so the overview of the Cyber Training Center. This is down at Muscatatuck. What are we? Live, full-scale, cyber physical range. So you've heard me mention clean room cyber multiple times, correct? So this is your expeditionary cyber. This is where we take your team and drop them into this site, and they have to figure it out. You have to deploy, not only deploy, you have to have knowledge of the network, so you have to figure out what your spectrum is. You have to figure out what nets are available to you. You have to figure out if you can even use your own net. And then, while you're doing all that, things are blowing up around you, and there's smoke and a few live animals and all kinds of good fun out there. We got a camel. He's nice. But so this place is very unique. So you figure 1,000 acres, over 100 buildings, a mile of tunnels. We even have some tunnels that emulate an Afghanistan theater for that mission set. But we're morphing from an urban training center to more of the electronic warfare and the multi-domain operations. So some of that stuff will change. Some of it will change a lot. But what do? We provide a high-fidelity cyber physical environment. Why? Because you're not always going to have a nice hotel room or a lab to sit in with the most powerful computers known to man. Sometimes you're going to be dropped, say Eastern Europe, and you're going to have to figure some things out. And while you're figuring things out, you're under duress. Okay, so we support cyber forces on training critical skills beyond the clean room. We also allow testing, research, et cetera, like some things like that down there for certain agencies, but we don't do a ton of that. Then how do we do it? The live virtual construct is really our claim to fame. And then we have a closed loop wireless environment. So when I say wireless, think cell phone tower. We have 3G, 4G, and in December I've been promised that 5G will be done. We'll see if somebody's going to have a Merry Christmas. So the 5G is coming, and what does that give us? That gives us the ability to manipulate the environment on a wireless scale, which allows for greater training. Now, we have to be careful with that, though, because another three-letter agency, I think it's called the FCC, they had a conversation with me one time a couple years ago. They weren't happy that I took over a cell tower down there. Oops. But so that was an uncomfortable conversation for me, but when I went back to talk to the guys, first words out of my mouth, that was awesome. So, yeah, that was a complete accident, though. Okay, our current capabilities, ICS and SCADA. We have a water treatment plant down there, a working water treatment plant because it used to support the school, or well, not just the school, but the entire site and the mental hospital. Okay, so what? So imagine this. You hack, you attack, you block, you do whatever you're going to do to that SCADA system, and you see a physical effect. You watch thousands of gallons of water drain. You hear alarms going off, and you have to respond. Great training for our water personnel. Okay, we have a prison complex with automated doors, so we have the ability for hackers to attack that. I already mentioned the cellular network. We have traffic signals that you can attack. Programmable logic controllers that you can manipulate and change traffic patterns and all kinds of good stuff. Just on site, though, not out in the populace. We also have a smart house, with all of our little creature comforts all over the place that you can attack. And then we have our social media environment and internet replication, or smear. What's great about this? You've heard of Facebook, right? We have Friendsbook. You've heard of Twitter? We got Tweeter. So what does that do? So while you're out there trying to figure things out and you're training and you're moving, your environment is being talked about by the populace and you're seeing it on social media. It's another layer of complexity to an operation where you have to pay attention to what the population is saying and doing to you, because they're giving away your position or they're turning on you and your information operations theme and message isn't hitting them effectively. So again, deeper layers, puts you into a real world training environment. And then, so I already mentioned 5G, the closed loop electric microgrid. So just like we're doing with water, we want to do that with power also. We want to put a small microgrid down there with the controls in place, et cetera, that can be defended, hacked, a real impact, and people really train. On-demand scenarios. We have some. We need to get a few more personnel to build more, and we need those ideas. So we're building more and more. So when a training audience comes in, it doesn't matter if it's a local fire department, special forces unit, whoever's coming there to train, they get it customized to their requirements and needs.
Sir, quick question for you.
Sure.
As you bring 5G online, are you going to lead in the literacy
Yes.
systems replicate
Yes.
very remote countries close to us?
Yes, because we want to also do frequency and spectrum congestion. Because as you probably well know, urban areas in some countries, especially if there's any kind of a conflict, their spectrum is not managed tightly in those cities. So we have to have that flexibility. Okay, so I like this not just from a physical cybersecurity point of view. I just like this because who came up with this idea? All right, here's our wonderful little cyber training center, Muscatatuck. So all the stars just showcase some of the things. So I told you about the cellular network. That's the water tower there. The water treatment plants on the back side of the property. Prison complex up here to the left. Just to the right of that, you see what looks like a track. That's the mock overseas soccer stadium. Let's see, we got the smart house right in the middle. The traffic signals are all throughout the complex. And then, there it is. Okay, right over here is an interesting thing. For those of you who work in the spectrum of state emergencies or natural disasters, that is a little area of houses that we can flood and drain. So we can flood houses so you can have a Katrina-like training experience here. And there's another area over, I want to say it's in this area. Yeah, it's right there. We have a submergible train also. So we could have like a train wreck in a river scenario as well. So 1,000 acres, lots of cool little things, very flexible site. I've only showed you some of the qualities of it. I mean, we got a power plant, we've got water treatment, we got some large buildings. Where am I? Over here, there's a Middle Eastern bazaar too, with the old wooden shack style, and we get role players to come in there and make it look like a small village or a congested city market street. That's where we bring out the goats and the camel. Camel hangs out back here. Okay, so the ask. You always ask for something. Oh, I'm sorry, go. Yes, okay, so I didn't cover that, but Ivy Tech has a cyber school there. So last year I spoke at their graduation, and the concept there is that we want them to use, obviously military funds to go to state school. It's all good, but what it gives us, all of us, it gives us more cybersecurity professionals because they come out with certifications ready to go. They are ready-made. They are ready-made students ready for the workforce. They're ready to go. In fact, we got a couple of them in the National Guard, and I've got another one who's going to sign as well. So we're excited about that. That is a great little program, and thank you for mentioning that. That was an oversight on my part. That's an outstanding program because we've just got it cleared legally to where we can now have them. They have a cyber club that comes and trains on some of the natural disasters and some of the other aspects of Muscatatuck, which they couldn't before. So we've already jumped that hurdle. Yes?
Quick question. Just based on other countries, riots, fires, shellings, munitions, fires that break out from the ability to replicate fire.
So, yes, we can do explosions. We actually have several gas ports where we can do open fires. We have a gas station that we like to light up from time to time. We've got a van we got a portable van with portable gas tanks that we can light up and show it on fire in different areas. We also have lots of extra vehicles and stuff like that staged back here and back here where we can pull that in and make it look more devastated than it naturally does. And we also have a collapsible parking garage. It's got the hydraulics to make it look like it collapses. You respond, and then we put it back and reset it.
I'm a high school teacher, so can you could I take my students on campus and show them how neat this is?
Yes. Yes, see me after this, and I'll get you the point of contact phone number. Yeah, now some of the higher classification stuff they won't be able to show you, but it will be well worth their time. It will be well worth their time.
We just started a cybersecurity program at school. So I'm curious to see
And it's a great place. I mean, it'll open so many minds because the place is so unique and so flexible. I mean, We've had 14 years of development on this site, 14 years. So we've taken it from, from it looking like a beautiful old college campus, and we made it look like a Middle Eastern scenario, then we added an Afghanistan scenario, and we continually morph it based on doctrine and the emerging needs. Right now, the emerging needs, multi-domain operations. We got to get sharper at it, and the only thing that this doesn't have is long-range fires. So they get a little, the surrounding farmers get a little antsy if we start lobbing artillery over them. I don't know why. I'd feel safe. Okay, the ask. Tighter relationship with institutes of higher learning. That means, the guidance counselors at high schools. That means also colleges, university, training centers, et cetera, et cetera. We want a tighter posture. Why? It's good for the student. It's good for the student. It's good for the university, of course. It's great optics for them. And it's good for the Guard. Why? Because the membership. If we have universities supporting and encouraging young men and women to join the force, it makes for a tighter community all the way around. And if not membership, mission. Because if we're pumping money into universities to train all these people, it reduces our need because we're going to have more cybersecurity experts out in the civilian sectors. So there'll be less requirements per se, and more for us to, hopefully recruit into the force to replace me, because I'm starting to get tired and my leg hurts. So how do we do this? Share the National Guard experience. That means set up flyer booths, encourage recruiters to your campuses, outreach to the National Guard about school-specific programs and opportunities. Maybe the National Guard can come out there and help with some of these things. Speaking engagements, like what I'm doing today. Simple. That's why AJ's here. He's going to start doing this because I'm going to get tired someday. Invitations to cyber panels and discussion forums. Why? When you bring the community together, you get better results. It's that simple. Think tanks, knowledge sharing, same thing. Better cyber posture all the way around. And training as well as education. And the big thing, like John said, be a leader. I want these students to be leaders. Now, get it, personality-wise, not everybody's a natural leader, but everybody has to lead at some level and some echelon. Get them out of their comfort zone, give them opportunities to lead. Okay, now if somebody has questions, comments, concerns, remember, I am not firing artillery over farmers. That is not happening. Sure.
And so I had a chance to train at about 67 different sites across the world, and the Skalon is absolutely the best site. And it's one of the best sites because of all of our National Guard folks and members working in the state. So if you aren't familiar with it, we're just all the infrastructure in the state. You should be extremely proud of the site, the state, and our great guards in the state. They are hands down, far and away among the top of the states. They're fantastic.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That's great feedback. The only other thing I want to say is with Veterans Day, please keep in mind that we are not at a time of peace yet. Okay, please keep that in mind. As we sit here today in this nice room doing this, having this nice discussion, nice breakfast and everything else, there's over 1,100 Indiana National Guardsmen deployed right now, away from home. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Always remember the enemy is out there, the enemy's in the wire, they're in your cell phone, they're in your house. Be careful, be vigilant, and thank you for your time.